Have you ever stood in a bright room surrounded by people who claim they love you and still felt like you'd vanished into thin air? That's exactly what happened to me. On my parents' wedding anniversary, my family revealed what was supposed to be a gift of love, a breathtaking mural painted across the front wall of their home. It shimmered under the light, filled with elegant branches and gold leaves, each one carrying a family name. 115 names to be exact. 115 pieces of family history carefully written for everyone to admire. I looked for mine. I started at the bottom of the tree, slowly following each twisting branch with my eyes. Every name jumped out like jewels in sunlight. My parents, my brother Jake, my sister Sarah, my cousins and their kids. Even the dogs and cats had made the cut. But my name? Nowhere. I read every leaf again, certain I'd overlooked it. I hadn't. There were only so many ways to search for something before the truth began to sting its way in. When I asked why, my mother said it so simply, you'd think it was a small clerical error. We figured you wouldn't want to be included anyway. My dad added a laugh to seal it, his voice warm, amused, careless. Yeah, you'd probably just call it sentimental nonsense. A casual dismissal, neat as a paper cut. And just like that, I was erased. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. My name is Megan. I'm 29, and I've spent most of my life trying to decode my own family, as if loving them were an exam I could finally pass with enough study. From the very beginning, I always felt like I was watching life from behind a thick sheet of glass. Everyone else laughed together, their voices blending like melody and rhythm I could never quite match. Conversations flowed around me while I stood there, the silent observer, present, but somehow apart. I'm autistic, though that word didn't come into my story until much later. For most of my childhood, I just thought something had gone wrong somewhere. I wasn't broken, exactly, but I was permanently out of signal range, like a phone that looked perfect on the outside but couldn't connect with anyone. So I treated social life as a puzzle. I studied people the way others studied grammar rules or equations. I memorized how long to keep eye contact, 3 seconds, no more, no less. I practiced when to nod, when to smile, when to stay still. I learned every social pattern my family used like notes in a song, and I rehearsed them silently, hoping one day I'd be able to hum along without missing a beat. Still, no matter how much effort I poured into understanding, I was always slightly off. I missed cues, paused too long, spoke too carefully. My brother Jake and sister Sarah, on the other hand, never had to think about it. Their charm flowed easily. Their jokes always landed, and most of the time they landed on me. The way I talked too formally, how I went quiet when I got overwhelmed, the way I corrected tiny factual mistakes during dinner conversations. Everyone laughed, even my parents. Mom would shake her head fondly and say, "Oh, that's just Megan being Megan," while Dad chuckled, adding something about my robot voice. I learned to smile along. If I laughed too, maybe I'd sound human enough to belong, so I worked to be useful instead. Useful people get kept around, right? When bills were late or the property taxes came due, I helped quietly. When cousins needed money for emergencies, I sent it over before they asked. I contributed extra for every group gift, every family fund. No one noticed, but that was fine. I told myself love was a form of service. If I couldn't be the one who filled the room with clever jokes, I could still be the one who made sure everyone else had what they needed. In my mind, that counted as belonging. Then came their 30th anniversary celebration. The same house I grew up in, the one that had always smelled like polished wood and faint disappointment, was glowing with life that night. Every room overflowed with laughter, warmth, and the unmistakable hum of people who knew they were wanted. I arrived in a new dress, having practiced small talk in the car mirror, ready to slip into my usual background role. Quiet, polite, unproblematic. Inside, relatives crowded every corner, balancing glasses of wine and plates of food, their voices echoing off the walls. It was noisy, but in that joyful way that only families create. I could feel my pulse racing as I tried to choose the right place to stand, the right moment to smile. Then, my sister Sarah grabbed Mom's hand, her voice bright with excitement. "Okay, everyone, it's time for the big reveal." A hush fell as people squeezed into the hallway. Someone pulled away a large white sheet, and the whole crowd gasped. The mural glowed under the lights, A monstrous tree stretching floor to ceiling, gold branches curling like rivers, shining leaves bearing names in perfect calligraphy. People pointed, delighted, finding themselves among the leaves. Grandma Betty, Baby Connor, even Max the golden retriever. It was a map of belonging, a map that had no room for me. At first I felt confusion, then disbelief, and finally a deep churning shame that burned under my skin. The kind that makes you want to disappear entirely because someone has beaten you to it. I slipped away to the bathroom, locked the door, and pressed my hands against the cool tile until my pulse calmed enough to breathe. Family trees don't erase people by accident. Someone chose to leave me out. Multiple someones, actually. Someone noticed my name, thought about including it, and decided not to. That's not forgetting. That's rewriting reality. When I stepped back out, my face carefully neutral, I asked as evenly as possible, "Don't you think someone might be missing from the mural?" My mother barely looked up. "We figured you wouldn't want to be on it anyway," she said again. Dad's small laugh fell like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had already been written. I didn't argue. I simply nodded, picked up my coat, and walked out through that noisy, glowing house. Not one head turned. No one followed. No one seemed to notice that the invisible daughter had left. That night, I didn't rage or cry or post anything online. Instead, I opened the quiet folder on my laptop where I kept years' worth of records, the bank statements and transfers that told a different story of family love. Every shared account I'd used to bail them out, every emergency deposit, every contribution, I canceled each one. I closed every link. When the next group chat popped up asking for gift money or donations, I didn't respond. For a while, no one noticed. Then the messages started. Jake's voice note sounded warm, almost rehearsed. "Hey sis, we missed you at brunch. You know we love you, right? Oh, and could you send your share for Mom's birthday gift?" I didn't reply. For once, silence worked in my favor. Then something unexpected happened. A conference on neurodiversity contacted me about giving a keynote speech. They'd read an essay I'd written about masking, about autistic women burning out from trying to appear normal all the time. I almost deleted the email. Public speaking terrifies me. My throat closes up. My tongue gets twisted. My voice shakes, but maybe that was exactly the point. So I stood on that stage, bright lights hot on my face, looking out at over 1,000 people, and I told them a story about a woman who spent her whole life quietly contributing to a family that painted her out of their history. Imagine, I said, my voice getting stronger with each word, being so thoroughly erased that when your family creates a permanent monument to their love, there's no space for you. Not because you weren't there, but because they decided you didn't belong. I talked about the mural with 115 names. I talked about the automatic assumption that I wouldn't want to be included. It talked about the years of financial support that somehow never earned me basic recognition. The audience was dead silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on their feet, not out of pity, but out of recognition. These were people who understood what it felt like to be systemically ignored, to have their contributions minimized, to be treated as optional by the people who should value them most. I never mentioned my family by name, but the speech was recorded and posted online. Within 48 hours, it had millions of views. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories of family exclusion. News outlets picked it up. Suddenly, the mural speech was everywhere. That's when people started connecting the dots. Sarah had built her personal brand around inclusivity and acceptance. She ran workshops on family harmony and had a popular Instagram account about creating loving homes. When people realized that the woman advocating for inclusion had literally excluded her own sister from a family mural, the backlash was swift and brutal. Her workshop bookings were canceled. Her social media followers started asking pointed questions. Brand partnerships evaporated. Jake's small business, which relied heavily on family connections and word-of-mouth referrals, suddenly found clients backing away. My parents, who had always been pillars of their church community, started getting uncomfortable questions about why their daughter wasn't welcome in their family celebration. Sarah's response was predictable. She sued me for defamation, claiming my speech had damaged her reputation and caused financial losses, because apparently telling the truth becomes defamation when it costs someone money. But here's what she didn't anticipate. The lawsuit only made the story bigger. News outlets love a good David versus Goliath story, especially when Goliath is suing David for having the audacity to talk about being excluded. The legal documents had to be specific about what exactly I'd said that was supposedly false. They couldn't identify a single untrue statement. I had been excluded from the mural. I had financially supported the family for years. They had assumed I wouldn't want to be included without ever asking me. The lawsuit was quietly dropped 6 months later, but by then the damage was done. My speech had spawned a whole movement of people sharing their stories of family exclusion. Mural moment became shorthand for those times when families reveal exactly how little they value certain members. As for me, I kept that image in my mind. Not the blank space where my name should have been, but the moment when 1,000 people rose to their feet because they finally heard someone name what they'd experienced too. I had been erased quietly, but I reclaimed myself loudly without ever raising my voice. Sometimes, the cruelest exclusions happen in plain sight, disguised as family traditions or harmless oversights. But when someone shows you who you really are to them, believe them the first time. And remember, the only way to answer eraser is to exist so fully, so undeniably that no one can paint you out again. If this story hit close to home, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to accept being invisible. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the most hurtful way family has excluded you? And remember, your worth isn't determined by whether others choose to see it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. Until next time, keep making yourself heard.